Are you ready to invest in yourself today? Welcome to the WealthBuilders Podcast, where investment leader Billy Epperhart teaches you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom. Scripture says in Deuteronomy 8:18, "Remember the Lord, your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." At WealthBuilders, our goal is to teach you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom in your finances, your business, and your investments.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Wealth Builders Podcast. I'm so excited that you joined us because we've got this amazing event that is coming up in just 2 weeks that you definitely want to be a part of. And we are featuring one of our most popular speakers at this event, attorney Bill Bronchick. Bill, welcome.
Welcome, Karen. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, Bill is he is amazing, first of all, as an attorney, understands real estate. We say, even though you're not a CPA, you know more about taxes than most CPAs, economy, you name it. And so, Bill, I am so excited to just hear from you, what your thoughts on the economy are. What is happening right now? I know you're really good at helping find those silver linings. So, Bill, what are you seeing that we need to know about today?
Great. So first of all, by the way, my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's is in economics, which I graduated with honors. And, not to brag, but I was an undergraduate teaching assistant for basic and intermediate economics as an undergraduate.
No wonder you're so smart.
No, thank you. Well, I'm good with numbers. I'm good with money and math.
Yes, you are.
So, I always like to see what is the opportunity in everything. Everyone looks at the economy or the situation they're in or the way the world is in or the country is in or their state is in or their society is in and complain a lot and look at the negative. But I look at the opportunities. Amidst the chaos, there's always opportunities to profit and do very well when things are apparently going bad. I mean, for example, this is not a great example for, for everybody to know. They might get angry at this, but we all know illegal immigration is a problem. There's a lot of people coming into the country and more, and there are businesses that make money off of that. There are businesses that cater car insurance to people who don't have citizenship, check cashing companies, things like that. So there's a whole business that thrives on that. So they don't want it shut down. They don't want the problem fixed. And now it's a bad example because those aren't the most, honorable businesses taking advantage of illegal immigrants to some extent. But to demonstrate for you that where there's seemingly a big problem, there's also potentially a solution that you can profit on individually, even though everybody is whining about how bad things are. So, for example, mortgage rates have kicked up, and that's hard for the real estate market for people buying. Right. It's also hard for sellers because buyers can't buy as much house, so they want the seller to drop the price. But on the other hand, when interest rates are up, seniors can save and get a reasonable return. It used to be 0.25% in a bank. Now you can get a CD at pretty close to 4% now. Still pretty low compared to inflation, but it's better than 0.25%. So for every yin, there's a yang, so to speak. The alpha and the omega. There's always a counterbalancing opportunity for every problem in the economy. So you just got to look where those niches are and get rich in the niches.
Wow, Bill, that's a great perspective because it is easy to focus on, oh my goodness, for real estate, the interest rates are high. There's nothing out there. But there's also a connection to that. When the interest rates go up, the opportunity to purchase a property it's like it connects. So there's always opportunity, but maybe even explain how that works with interest rates. In a lot of our audience is very interested in real estate, which of course, we are too. You're an amazing investor and you teach on that. But looking at the market with real estate, are there opportunities out there right now? Is this a time for people to start looking to maybe get a bargain or buy property?
Absolutely. I mean, look at where it was 18 months ago. Everybody was asking X and people were overbidding the property. So you were competing with cash buyers who were overbidding the asking price by 10 or 15%, and it was impossible as a buyer to find a deal. Now that interest rates have gone up, buyers have less buying power. So there are fewer buyers buying. A lot of them have dropped out and said, interest rates are too high, I can't afford it. Or they're just putting pressure on sellers to drop their price. So now is the opportunity where you get sellers who are motivated because they can't sell their house as quickly as they used to or for as much as they thought they could. And a lot of sellers are now desperate and dropping their prices. Now, on the other hand, another thing that's happening is a lot of sellers are saying, I'm not going to drop my price. I'm just not going to do it because my mortgage rate is 2.8 and I'm just going to rent it out. So that's an interesting thing too. So a lot of sellers are just pulling their listings and saying, I'm not dropping my price anymore. I'm just going to rent it for a year and see what happens.
And, I am totally seeing that as well. It's almost like the customer or consumer sentiment has not accepted that the real estate market has adjusted. And in some markets, it really hasn't adjusted much because the demand has continued. And you've always told us that real estate is a local business. Like you have to look at real estate from a local market. But in that, what does it look like for people with a buy and hold? If all of these properties are kind of moving into the market, what is that going to do to rental prices?
Most of the sellers who are doing this are the upper end properties. The lower end properties from the median and below that are still moving pretty quickly because they're in short supply. There's just no new building of 1950s 3-bedroom, 1,500 square foot ranches. I mean, there's just that product doesn't exist anymore. It hasn't existed for 50 years. So if you're selling one of those, you have no problem selling them. No problem if you're a landlord renting them. It's the upper end homes. If I were in your market in Dallas, that'd probably be like an $800,000 to $1 million home. There's plenty of those for sale. And those sellers are now renting them out, but they really don't want to. They really want to get rid of the house and not drop their price, which presents an opportunity if you know how to finance properties creatively to give the seller close to their asking price, but yet buy it on creative terms, taking advantage of the fact that they have a 3% mortgage.
Wow. So Bill, of course, you've piqued my curiosity there, and I'm sure our audiences as well. So instead of looking just directly at the interest rates that are being offered and saying, oh my gosh, they've gone higher, give us an example or two of how someone might approach creative financing like you described.
Yeah. So I've gotten tons. I'm deluged with calls in the last 3 months from realtors saying, I've got a seller who owns a property with, let's just say, with no mortgage on it, free and clear. And he doesn't want to drop his price. He listed it for $900, which was probably too much, and dropped it to $850, then $800, and says, I'm not going any lower. And he probably bought it for $5 3 years ago. So he still has plenty of room there, but maybe it's his ego or her ego. They don't want to drop the price anymore. They just had it in their mind that 800 is the lowest they're going. So I said, well, offer an opportunity to seller finance, meaning the seller's the bank. The buyer gives the seller a down payment, and the seller takes a promissory note with payments like a bank. And then the seller becomes the bank, and you pay the payments to the seller instead of paying it to a bank. And that way the seller can, number one, get a higher price than if you wanted to lowball them with cash. Of course, cash is king. But you can get in maybe with less than 20% down, which you normally they want at banks. Maybe you can put 10% down and get 4.5% interest, which is far lower than interest rates in the market. But the seller still gets their price. So if it's their price, our terms, or it's the opposite. So if a seller is willing to do that and they get a reasonable rate of interest, 4.5 is better than they'll get in a bank. Right. And it's safe, it's secured by a lien on the house that they know. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Wow. And in that situation, would they generally put a time frame on that? I mean, like 5 years, something like that?
Mm-hmm. It really depends on the parties. We're going to amortize it over 30 years like any other mortgage. And maybe the seller has what's called a balloon, which is an early payoff. So it pays over 30-year schedule like a regular loan, but the balance, whatever is due in 5 years, is all of a sudden payable. But the seller may not want that. The seller may have an adverse tax consequence by receiving all the money at that point. So they may want to continue this out for a long period, or the buyer has 5 years to sell it or refinance it.
Wow, that is really interesting. And I think people would be a little hesitant with that, thinking that people wouldn't be open to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like how you brought the value of you're still going to get that amount. And then for the buyer, when the interest rates calm down a bit, then they would be able to, and then values start to rise again, they would be able to do a refinance out of that.
Right. And it really is a good situation for a seller who's, a seller, if you can contact, for example, you can buy lists of people whose listings have expired with a real estate agent, and then contact those people directly. And now you've just added 6% to the value of the deal by omitting the realtor. And then just go directly to a seller and offer them. But I've had realtors contact me and had a buyer made this kind of silly creative offer, and I really don't understand it. Can you close this? And I say, of course. And here's another way to do it. And so I've been giving lectures at realtor offices twice a month now, teaching them how to do this to get more commissions, to get more property sold. And they're just loving it. And their sellers are loving it.
Wow, Bill, that is awesome. So that creative financing, and then the tip that you just gave too is amazing. Like, look at the expired listings and see if you can deal directly with that seller. If you're an investor and you're trying to buy and bring in these terms, this is just like a few minutes with you, and we have got you at Wealth Builders. The conference is coming up February 17th through the 19th. Bill, I don't even know if you know this. I think you're speaking 3 times. Like, you're totally a fan favorite, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
So
I welcome the opportunity.
Oh, it's just great to have you there. So if you listening have not yet purchased your tickets, I want to encourage you to do that. The in-person is, filling up very quickly. And there's still some tickets left for that. It is wealthbuilders.org/events. You can also join us by live stream, and it is the full weekend, starts on Friday evening, the 17th, goes through early afternoon on Sunday. And I just encourage you to be a part of this. If you're looking at growing wealth God's way, and you're trying to navigate through what's happening with the economy, inflation, pending, threats of recession, this is going to really help you be encouraged and find those opportunities. Bill, could you talk also a little bit about what is happening with inflation, pending recession? I was just opening the news this morning. There's always some investigation that's happening. It's like, where is this going?
It's becoming noise. There's so many investigations. Well, looking, broadly at the economy, if that's a word, we look at interest rates, have fairly stabilized in the 6s. They've actually dropped a little bit. They hit 7.25, so now they're down in the mid 6s. Interest rates from the Fed, they've seemed to come almost to a balance, maybe a couple of small quarter point raises, but that doesn't always raise the mortgage rates, by the way. The mortgage rate is based on the long-term bond yield, what long-term bond investors expect. And what's interesting is we were looking this morning, and the adjustable rate mortgage, which is usually a lower rate than 30-year fixed, is actually higher than the 30-year fixed. That means that the long-term bond investors expect interest rates to drop. Inflation is still a big number. It's probably not the real number that they're giving us. It's probably not the real number, because we know, going to Costco, my cart is only half full and it's still $400. Crazy, everything has gone up. They say 9% or 8%, but that's absurd. And gas prices have, if you notice, just back up about 75 cents. Conveniently went down 75 cents before the election, and now are back up 75 cents. Isn't that magical how that works? But obviously things are tough, because the number of people who are defaulting on their mortgages is way up. Foreclosures are going to start coming big time this year. And the reason is for that is because the cost of living has gone up so much that effectively everyone's gotten a wage decrease effectively. So wages are going up. You see McDonald's offering $18 an hour to start, which used to be 11 or 10. But on the other hand, people's cost of living has gone up so much that they're still netting less. And that's causing people to prioritize, feed their family first, pay their mortgage second. And unfortunately, it's leading to defaults, which, again, depending on how you look at it, good or bad, it's an opportunity for investors when there are foreclosures to pick up.
When we were talking about this and seeing the difference between what's happening now compared to the 2008, 2010, one of the outliers that there just wasn't as many houses on the market at this time compared to what was happening back then. Is that still the case, or what are you seeing with the number of houses on the market?
Yeah, so supply and demand is what it's all about, and supply and demand in local neighborhoods. That's what determines values going up or values going down. It's not the housing numbers nationally. That's a false number, because real estate is all local. It's not like investing in gold where it's all the same product wherever you go. Real estate is local about how many houses for sale versus how many buyers. Or if you're a landlord, how many houses for rent versus how many renters. So what we're seeing is that the number of houses, the inventory, is dropping again. It went up last spring as the interest rates went up, doubled in some markets, but it was already so low in the begin with for the last 8 or 9 years. For example, Denver is normally about 25,000 homes for sale. In 2009, we hit 35,000. So it was way oversupplied, which caused the drop. It's very simple mathematics. Now, by 2020, we had dropped as low as 2,000 homes.
Wow.
Some even 1,500 homes some months. So then it doubled. It went to 4,000 homes, and everyone freaked out. But they don't realize it's still 1/5 of normal. Now it's falling again because, like I said, people are taking their houses off the listings because they don't want to drop the price anymore. They're deciding to rent them. So we've got to drop again. And again, fewer houses, same amount of buyers. If interest rates continue to fall, prices will stabilize or even go back up again. It's hard to tell. We're in uncharted territory here.
Yeah, it really seems like it. There's some things from history that we know, like even looking at interest rates, where if some people, all they knew was really the 2.5%, 3% environment of interest rates. But those of us that have been around a while,
right.
The interest rate environment that we're in today is actually more normal. It's
more normal because statistically over the last 60 years or so, they've been keeping interest rates calculated. The average is about 7 to 8%. So we're still below normal. Those of you who remember the early 80s or the late 70s when you bought a home at 15% or 14% interest and commercial property at 23%. People still made money then. When I got started in 1991, the interest rate on an investor mortgage was 10%, and I still made money.
Wow, and that's really knowing what to look for. We have a lot of what I call safety rails for people, just some guidelines, industry standards that we cover. And Bill, you're a part of the WealthBuilders real estate coaching program and actually the business coaching as well. So like from your perspective, what would you say to people that are wondering about attending the WealthBuilders conference?
Well, the first thing is live is always best. The energy in the room, the presence of God, the presence of all these wonderful people it can't be replicated online. If you have no choice, you watch online. But if you could be there, really be there, and it's not just what you learn; it's who you know and who knows you. The person sitting next to you could be the person that brings you the opportunity of a lifetime for a business transaction, or vice versa, or partners with you, or funds you, or you fund them in some business transaction or real estate transaction. You just never know. So if you can attend live, really attend live. Plus, you can ask questions much more easily. We do take questions online from the online audience, but it's easier when you raise your hand. You're right there.
Yeah, exactly. We're there too. All of us, like the speakers and coaches, and we love to visit with people. I agree. There's just like lifetime friendships that are developed at WealthBuilders. And when you think about it, it's a group of people coming together that are hearing that sound in the spirit that Billy talks about, that are like, it's time we need to learn about building kingdom wealth. and creating generational wealth and leaving a legacy. And I just can't think of a better time for people to really learn about this, get around like-minded people. Here, it's all based on the foundation of the Word of God. What does God have to say about this? And Billy was telling me, Bill, that he's going to be teaching on some things that we've never heard. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Yeah.
That should be interesting. That should be interesting. He's a wealth of knowledge.
He
So
really,
it should be interesting. It should be interesting. I just remember last year when I was there, hearing the Lapp brothers speak, and their mission was it just grabbed me by the heart. And I don't know if people watching got the same thing, but I just had to participate because it was just something that I said, this is amazing what they're doing. And there's something about that connection live that it's hard to get online.
That's true. And by the way, David and the Lapp brothers are coming back, and gosh, wait till you hear what they have been doing this past year. It's like incredible. And really everybody speaking has got a story and experience to share. And I think too that we're all for each other. And I love that. It's everybody is like, wow, how can we help move this forward? And in the meantime, all of the families are blessed with relationships. We've really seen lives changed, and that's what it's all about. We're just so grateful for Billy and Becky that started Wealth Builders and continue to have Wealth Builders events, and most importantly, just help people to really learn about the wealth that God has planned for them, but do it in a way that is for kingdom purposes. And that's what it's all about. Right. All right, I have one final question for you, Bill. As we look into what is happening in real estate and in the markets, what would be the one piece of advice that you would share with people to begin to look at, or to begin to inquire on or study to really capture the time frame that we're in right now?
I'd say the most important thing is you want to be a problem solver, because that's what we're in business for, and especially in real estate, we're problem solvers. It's not just about math and money and numbers. It's what's the seller's problem and how can I fix it and make money? I have two rules for every deal I do. One is I have to help the seller solve their problem. And number two, I have to make money. It's not a charity business. I have other charities I give to, but my real estate is not a charity business. It's a profit business. So both of them. So I can't just make money and then take advantage. That's no good. And I can't just help them and make no money. So it's got to be a win-win for the transaction. So being a problem solver involves just learning more than the square peg in the square hole. You have to think outside the box and learn new ideas, like we'll be talking about at the event. And the more tools you have in your toolbox, I think the more able you are to solve people's problems.
Thank you so much, Bill. Hey, and if someone's listening to this and they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
My website is legalwiz.com. That's W-I-Z without the H, legalwiz.com. I have tons and tons of videos, articles, podcasts, webinars, all kinds of free downloads, and a free real estate starter course that they can get started with right away. Awesome.
If you've not connected with Bill, I really encourage you to do so. And Bill, thank you so much for being on today. And thank all of you for tuning in to this podcast on a weekly basis. We're seeing significant growth. We know that this is catching on. It's providing information for people they want to hear. And we would love to see you in person. Again, it's February 17th through the 19th. It's in Denver, Colorado. And to learn more, go to wealthbuilders.org/events. So, Bill, thanks again for being a part of this today and for being part of our conference.
My pleasure.
And thanks all of you. And God bless you and make it a great rest of the day.
We hope you learned something of lasting value today from this Wealth Builders podcast. If you'd like any tools, teachings, or resources mentioned in the podcast, you'll find them online at wealthbuilders.org. Wealth Builders exists to teach you how to build wealth through applied biblical wisdom. in your finances, your business, and your investments. Wealth Builders is a nonprofit organization. We depend on your donations to keep this podcast running. Please consider donating to us on wealthbuilders.org.